I went on an interview last week with a retailer, and I don't think I'm going to get a call back for this one. The reason why? The whole interview process and interview approach really was extremely gynocentric. Now, when I went into this interview, I was expecting, your basic interview where the interviewer asks you questions and then you try to explain what you have to offer to them and what you can bring to the table and what will make you an asset to the organization. But when I went to this interview in the afternoon, it was a group interview. And when it comes down to group interviews, that kind of setting pretty much favors females over males. Because in a group interview, it's primarily mostly about social aspects and not business aspects. And when it comes down to that type of interview process, it's a gynocentric type work environment because only in gynocentric type work environments do you find people focusing on group things and social things over tasks, duties, and the goals that need to be set. Now, the manager I was interviewing with was saying that he could train anyone to do this, and I believe that was kind of an arrogant statement to say that you could train anyone to do this, and that he also said that he wanted looking for somebody who had a personality, what type of personality they had. And that's, again, another flaw to the process because I believe you really cannot train everyone to do a job. You really want people who know what they're doing and can understand the processes that have to be followed with something. You really don't want someone who has a friendly personality because a lot of times people with friendly personalities may not be very good at getting tasks completed or getting things done. They're good at talking, but they're not very good at doing. And this is something that a manager really has to look out for during an interview process because you're looking for a person who's going to be what they call a good fit for the organization, and personality doesn't really tell you much if a person is a good fit. People have great personalities, again, but they're very horrible workers. And when I was in this interview process, I just found the whole thing to be, it was geared mostly towards females. It was mostly focused on emotional questions. The first question is introduce yourself and tell us a fun fact about yourself. And I found that question to be very, very feminine and very oriented towards females because females, again, are very social, they're very talkative, and they love to, talk all about themselves. Whereas men, we want to get to the point. We want to focus on, what goals the organization has, what direction the company has, what do you want done, and how do you want it done. That's what we want to talk about during an interview because to us, that's what we believe is going to make us a good fit for an organization. We're focused on the logistics and the logical aspects of the job. We are not focused on our emotions and our personality. A man goes into that type of workplace, he looks at that and goes, this is some effeminate stuff. And when I listened at the interview, I was sitting there going, this is some effeminate stuff. And then I listened to other questions they asked, like, if you were an element, which one would you be? And another question they ask is, what two things would you change about yourself? Again, these questions were extremely gynocentric. They were feminine, female-oriented questions because, again, they were not geared towards getting a logical answer towards solving a problem. Men look for logical answers so that they can solve problems. Women look for emotional questions so that they can talk about themselves and talk about how they can socialize. And this work environment, which it seemed more like a social environment and not one focused on getting the tasks done at hand. When you're in a business, you really want to focus on the tasks at hand. That's what I thought. But when I entered this work environment, everything seemed to be, towards the social aspects, the personality aspects. And I'm seeing this more and more with a lot of businesses these days that I apply to, not only um, on interviews, but online. A heavy focus on personalities, and that's not really good for business because that's not going to get you people who are going to be a good fit long term. Yeah, everybody's getting along on said job, but nobody's getting anything done on said job. And this is the big problem I'm seeing with the gynocentric workplace as it stands. Everybody's happy, everybody's comfortable, everybody's focused on their emotions, but nobody's focused on the logistics of the business, the model of the business, the direction of the business. And you need to focus on those aspects if you hope to grow a company or to expand a business. This is the main reason why a lot of these businesses today are struggling, is because everybody is focused on emotion and they're not focused on logic. I mean, part of being in a business is dealing with conflict, because conflict is what work is all about. When you're at a workplace, conflict is about solving problems, because the conflict it forces you to solve problems. It forces you to, deal with a situation so that you can move forward to the next step. And I'm not seeing a lot of businesses, especially in retail, and I've done a couple of retail interviews, where they're focusing on problem solving, where they're focusing on critical thinking, where they're focusing on the bigger picture. Instead, everybody's talking about feelings and talking about emotions, and they're not focused on the nitty gritty, which is, making sure that the products are in stock, the customer has a person in front of them who understands the product enough to explain it to them, or a person who understands basic customer service skills. Instead, they're thinking that we can find somebody with a great personality, we can train them, and then they enter the workplace. And then what happens is, in 90 to 180 days, they wind up turning over, and you wind up spending money on top of money, continuing to try to replace people. They're not looking at that big picture as it relates to business. And when I went to this interview, it was one of the most disturbing things that I ever, experienced, because it showed me that everyone these days is focused mostly on these effeminate, emotional approaches to business, when we really need more of a logical approach to business. And we really need people focused on not on how people feel, but really on focusing on how to meet the goals of the organization and how to communicate effectively with people. Because a lot of people, again, have great personalities, and they know how to talk, but they also deflect, they lie, they hide, and these things can impede your goals long term when you're trying to run a business. And I look at these interview approaches, like this group interview, and it really cheats a business out of seeing the potential of a talented candidate, because you have people sitting here and they're talking about their personalities and how they feel, and they're not showing you what they have to offer in a more comprehensive way as they would in a one-on-one interview approach. And in a one-on-one interview approach, I believe you can get a better assessment of people, you can get a better understanding of people, and you can read social cues better than when you have people in a group. When people are in a group, you have to wind up reading 4 and 5 people, whereas in one-on-one, you're really going to see what a person is really like and what they have to offer. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.